we're just developing. We're doing the first one tomorrow to Ballarat, regional Victorian tours to really capture the Irish Australian history, so it can bring people's family history to life, because a lot of people have ancestors that lived in those places, and Bendigo being the gold mines as well as Ballarat, and
And Beechworth.
And Beechworth, yep. And we're not currently going to Beechworth, but just this week I've been to Crosley. Does anyone know of Crosley? Near Warrnambool and Koroit. So Crosley, Warrnambool and Koroit, they're all within sort of half an hour of each other, Port Fairy, around that area, and had the most amazing experience with these communities. That area is the highest population of Irish people outside of Ireland in Australia. And I had the most incredible experience at St Bridget's Cultural Centre, for those of you who might know it. There's a whole Irish committee there, about 15 people that I met with, and there's a whole story that should be a movie, but they basically saved their church from being sold off by a real estate agent, and they've written a book about it, and I just read it back on the train for 4 hours, and it's the most thrilling book that they managed to pay. I think it was $302,000 to buy this church back by enrolling everyone in the community to pitch in what they had, because so many people have. I even got a message from Mary Costello, Tim Costello's wife, last night saying, because I posted something on Facebook saying, our son got married in St Bridget's Church. So lots of people have a story and a history in that place. So we're developing regional Victoria bus tours to that area. We're doing the first one tomorrow to Ballarat, to Sovereign Hill and the Eureka Centre there, and Philip Moore, which some of you may know. He's going to meet us. He's 84 years old and he's spent a good part of his life doing the research of the history. So he's going to jump on the bus in Ballarat and join us at Irish Murphy's for a lunch, and then off to Sovereign Hill and the Eureka Centre. Back here tomorrow night for a dinner. Hopefully the lights are working then. And then off to a singer sessions at the Clifton Hill pub, where there's about 70 plus musicians that all bring an instrument and play for 3 hours. So we've got a good day ahead of us tomorrow. So I just wanted to chat a bit about, if you can go to the next slide, Samuel, just about the Celtic Way and why I created the Celtic Way. I've had the absolute privilege, as many of you have, which we've just heard, to be able to discover where I'm from based on my ancestors. And my granny was from the west of Ireland, from a tiny little town called Glenmask. Turrimakiti is the nearest little town, and it's hilarious. It's got this tiny little milk bar that's so small, and they sell a bit of everything next to a little pub. And over the years I've gone back to Ireland every couple of years, and I just love hiring a car or convincing a friend to drive me out to her village and just sitting there opposite her old house, which is in the top right, and it's actually a donkey shed at the moment, but the 12 of them lived there for many years. And my mum's first cousin over in Ireland wrote the entire family history, so we're really grateful to have that and to know all the places to visit and the headstone, and I think there's something really special about being able to discover your history and know where you're from and some of the characteristics of your ancestors. You get to learn more about yourself, and a lot of them caught a boat or left their country not knowing if they would ever return or not knowing if they would ever see their family again. And I think that's extremely courageous, but maybe out of necessity. So my grandma was one of those people who left at 30 and went to London and was working making bombs in a bunker during the war, and then was a bus driver, and then caught the boat out to Australia and had 8 children in Alphington. And so one of you mentioned that you're one of 10. Who was that? And when I was at Crosley in Koroit the other day, the committee members, I'd say 12 out of 15 of them had family members over 10 people, which is quite amazing. So so I've had the absolute privilege to do that, and over the years I've travelled every second year to Ireland and just I'm sure we'd all agree here that Ireland has something really special, maybe except for David. Ireland has something very special about it that sort of cannot be replicated. The people, the culture, the humour, all of that sort of thing. So before, the reason I decided to create the tours was because at 19 I went to Nepal, because in high school I always wanted to, my dream was to help the poor and become successful by making other people successful. That's sort of what I remember I had in my mind in high school, and I signed up for a volunteering trip through the Duke of Edinburgh to Nepal, and I went there and I was really moved and inspired by the generosity of the Nepalese people, and I was asked back as a tour leader. So I went back leading groups of architects from Melbourne over to Nepal to design and build these structures that they had designed here in Melbourne over in remote communities. And that experience, when I was leading those tours, made me really curious and interested in how do we as Westerners make an effective difference in these places, because I didn't have any Nepalese translators, which was a bit of a disaster on those tours, and the architects were very attached to their designs, and when we got to the villages there needed to be lots of adjustments, and the materials weren't always the materials they had available, and the locals didn't always want the designs that they had planned. So after that trip I basically visited every organisation that would have me go and see how they made a difference and the impacts that they were having in Kathmandu. And on the back of that trip, when the group had gone back to Melbourne, I was walking down the back streets of Kathmandu one day, and I saw a very disabled, physically disabled woman struggling to walk and carry 2 bags, and she turned into a tiny little tin shed, and being my curious self, I poked my head around the corner and saw 6 other women were with her, living and operating this tin shed. And at the time they were making candles. They were melting out of this big sort of wok over an open flame, melting wax, and they were pouring it into these ancient looking stainless steel candle makers. And I was actually really inspired by that, because I'm from a family of entrepreneurs, and they were quite enterprising to be making candles, because for anyone that's been to Nepal, there were 10 to 12 hour electricity cuts during that time. So lots of people needed to buy candles again and again. So the way that relates to me running tours in Ireland is I ran that charity for 17 years, and there were over 5,000 women that were trained and educated and employed, and we set up 3 different businesses and 4 different businesses. One of those was a tour company. So I was taking tours to Nepal for a good sort of 12 to 13 years, and we did about 10 to 15 tours a year with university students and a few different schools and Rotarians and leadership organisations, and I absolutely loved it. I absolutely love bringing good people together and having experiences where people get to meet other like-minded people and have an adventure at the same time. So I handed that charity over about 4 years ago to the local people, so it's still running. And I handed 3 businesses over. One was a manufacturing business, a cooking school, and a guest house where the women could train up in those skills. And I really missed the tours when I handed the charity over. So I was travelling in Ireland, and I just thought to myself when I was in Ireland, geez, it would be an absolute dream to be able to run tours to Ireland. But when I mapped out the itinerary, and because I wanted to stay in the really beautiful cosy accommodation that give you the full Irish experience, which Ireland does accommodation so well. So I'd travelled around the country a couple of times, and I'd mapped out all the little pubs that feel like you get the real ridgy-jidge experience, and I'd sort of put a cost on all of it, and I thought, geez, would people actually pay this amount without even putting much profit on the tours, and to have the real and authentic experience? I just thought that's a lot of money for people, but I thought I'm going to do it anyway, because the idea sort of stuck with me and got louder and louder in my head until I actually put a date on it, and I thought I'm going to do this. So I set the date, and I terrified myself because I thought now I need to fill the tour with 20 people to make it viable, but we did that, and it was an awesome tour around Ireland, and people just had the best time, like Sue and Aram that came on their honeymoon as part of a group on the first tour that we ran. and there are plenty of people that really want to go to Ireland, Scotland and Wales, and that understand the value of an itinerary like that. So the itineraries are heritage focused and family history focused. So we visit, which some of you may have visited, the Epic Museum in Dublin and the Famine Ship, which is a brilliant little tour. And then we sort of go down to Cork and Cove, where there's a brilliant heritage centre in Cove, and Titanic Museum, which I reckon is just as good as the one in Belfast, and we do that too. But the Cove one is incredible because you can see Ellis Island, and it's, my granny, I asked her to write her family history in the last years of her life. So every year for about 6 years towards Christmas, she'd write another couple of pages, and so she wrote about that place, and it was just amazing to be able to stand there and look out to see Ellis Island where she was processed, and then up to Galway and everywhere in between the Ring of Kerry and all the main spots, but all of the little local spots that make Ireland really special. And because I've got a lot of family in Ireland and a lot of friends, every second night there's someone that joins us for a dinner and teaches a Gaelic language lesson or something like that, adds to the tour. And the Irish people are so generous. They normally shout the group, an Irish hot chocolate with Baileys in it, or a whiskey or some special drink, or that they brought gifts for the group of soaps and chocolates, and very generous. So yeah, so that's just a bit about. I forgot. Sorry, Samuel, I forgot to go through my slides. The Irish Family Heritage Trust is something I founded as well, which is a network of genealogists around Ireland, and I've been running a podcast called The Celtic Way, where there's some really incredible interviews with amazing people that have just been so generous in information around family history. So the link to that is on Spotify and Apple if you search The Celtic Way. We'll hear from a few of those guys tonight on the video. But with the Irish Family Heritage Trust, we offer, for people that come on our tours, family research before they go on the tour. They want a more in-depth experience. Not everyone's interested in that, but if they are interested, we can connect them with a genealogist. And at the other end of the tour, we also offer a personalised little trip for 2 or 3 days where they can go around with a genealogist and visit the headstone or visit the place that they used to live. And the most amazing thing about that offering is much of the time these genealogists are able to find relatives, when they're doing the research, and they go and meet them before the person comes over to Ireland, and that they're able to introduce the people and their relatives, which is a really special experience. The food's just arrived, so I'll stop there, and we'll chat later. Thank you.